Everybody, thank you so much for coming to the exhibition opening. And this is Thumbprint Gallery, and we have these exhibitions every month, every first Friday. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, thumbprintgallery.com. My name is Johnny. I'm one of the owners of Thumbprint Gallery. And this show, DAYO, focuses on Filipino heritage and diasporic identities and experiences, and it gets curated by one of our favorite artists, Nonie, Cruzado. And he is going to say a few words about the exhibition. Nonie.
Thank you, Johnny. Hello, everyone. I'm Nonie Cruzado. I've been a regular artist here in Thumbprint for about a year now. A decade now.
Not nervous.
And it's not obvious. I just want to talk about DAYO for a little bit, and I'm gonna introduce the present, the artist here, included in the show. So DAYO, in Tagalog word, it means immigrant, stranger, visitor, or can be like an outsider. As a concept, DAYO is a journey of creating and revealing of identities. It's a process. Sorry, I have to use a cheat sheet. It's a process and exploration of making sense of the world and finding meaning through our unique lenses. It'll be a driving force that it is rooted and will take root in the hearts and minds of whoever encounters it. It'll have wings to fly, to explore the vastness of self-expression and finding meaning. So this is a traveling art show. It'll be an annual. It's like an annual art show that encourages and promotes Filipino American artists around U.S., maybe even in the Philippines. Next year, we're tentatively will be in San Francisco, so watch out for the next DAYO does. Thank you so much, and I would like to introduce all the artists included in the show. Please, I'm just gonna call them like randomly. Jessica Yambao, please. Sorry, Kapuya. Grace Simpulan. Benito Benitez. Sorry. I'm not nervous. And there's Miko Aguilar. Where are you?
Outside.
Don't forget one here.
That's it.
And there's three more artists are based in the Philippines. They're Jin Talyada, Banwa, and then CJ Tañedo. Thank you.
And thank you guys for coming in. Right now we have a very special guest, Jason Perez. And he was the City of San Diego's Poet Laureate. So it's a great honor for us to have him here, perform some spoken word and say a couple things. And he is of the Filipino diaspora as well. So please give a round of applause for Jason Perez.
Thank you. I feel like I'm gonna rap. I'm gonna read off of some paper. So I want to maybe do this. Give some noise, more noise for Nonie Cruz for curating, bringing it. Johnny and Paul for hosting us. And not the city of La Jolla. I went to UCSD, so I think I could get it.
La Jolla's great.
It's great. Okay, so I'm going to read a few poems from my book, and I'll contextualize them a little bit. I was really honored to serve as the poet laureate for the city of San Diego. I think what was tricky, perhaps, for the city was that I am also an ethnic studies professor in a community organizer, right? And so when the genocide began to unfold in Palestine, I did not flinch to say something. I did not flinch to start organizing with our local Palestinian brothers and sisters. And so here, and I'm not doing that to congratulate myself on that, because this is still going on, right? But I'm doing that just sort of as a humble sort of gesture to remind us that it is an absolute privilege that we can be here to gather, to convene in the spirit of art, knowing the incredibly radical subject matter of the exhibition is what I felt welcome to join. And those of you who are paying attention to global things in the Filipino diaspora, the very tragic attack on Filipinos at the Lapu-Lapu Festival in Canada, in Vancouver, is something that is still lingering in our hearts. All the while we are organizing in solidarity with whatever communities we are encountering locally, right? But as the poet laureate, I got to witness quite a lot and build with a lot of different kinds of artists and different kinds of communities. And these are sort of the spaces that I think we will continue to meet, right? And I'm very honored to be here to share some poetry and to maybe talk a little bit about my work. So I am going to read from my second book. It's titled "I Ask About What Falls Away," and I wrote it sort of when I came back around the time, right at the beginning of the pandemic, right? So I moved back from Los Angeles for a little bit to City Heights. If you can't tell by now, I'm from Oceanside, right? But I spent most of my life now in San Diego proper, in the city of San Diego. And so I moved back, the COVID hit, and the world was sort of asking us to pay attention quite differently, right? And so what came out of that sort of experience in that moment in my small little corner of City Heights was this book, right? Which is a book-length poem, one long poem. It is a lot of forms and a lot of different sort of experiments, but it's one long poem about grief, about San Diego, my love for San Diego, my grieving for San Diego, my disdain for capitalism, and sort of my just again a humble offering, right? A humble elegy for this city that I have come to call home. I'm going to read it off of some printed paper because now that I'm the age I am, I can't even see the pages on the book. But I have the books here for sale at a discount of $16. They're $17.95. I make maybe like $4 off of it, but they're right here. I'm always happy to share it with folks who are from San Diego, from this area, but also folks who share perhaps some of the ways that I invite us to remember and think about the world in the book. And you'll get a sense of that as I read here. So I'm going to sort of flip through pages here and hold the mic at the same time, so if you'll sort of bear with me. So I'll read two things from here, from this book, and then I'll read sort of an experimental essay, just to sort of give us a little sense, and I'll do that since this gentleman, Joel Block, came down for this, and it's about my mother, and I'll sort of talk about that a little bit. And then I'll end with a piece about that I'm sort of thinking through right now, especially after this ICE raid, this assault on our communities in South Park that happened a couple of days ago. So this is from I Ask About What Falls Away. Of course, I'm a scholar or an ethnic studies researcher, so the book is really a poetic or lyrical response to an academic book by a Filipino scholar by the name of Neferti XM Tadiar. She wrote this book called Things Fall Away, and she talks about those life forms and those sort of ways of living that fall outside of the rubric of capitalism, but also fall outside of the rubric of resistance and response to capitalism, right? So it's sort of this uncharted sort of space where she sees revolutionary potential. So for me, that was a framework to re-envision or re-encounter San Diego, right? So from I Ask About What Falls Away. Call this raw material literature. Call this principled surrender. Call this grammar of worry. I draft this, dear Kasama, against fishhooks of hope. I draft against slow elimination. I draft from soft interior of riot. I draft syllables of known sadness, such knowing, such evidence, such kitchen table phenomenology of you reading this, of this reading you. On a rainy morning, I see you through the window in a blue mask and black hoodie, delivering bags of groceries at the doorstep. I draft from collected stillness, restless ghosts archived in my veins. Consider this an intimate poetics of rage. Consider this rage divine refusal. Let us talk about such refusal. Let us talk about such dysregulation of promise. Let us talk about how much I miss you. Drive east on University toward 49th. Park your Civic in the alley out back. This alley of splendor and solitude, a gallery of rain-soaked mattresses. A child will slide down a half-assembled red plastic slide, into a small hill of middle-grade paperbacks. You'll find a gold purse filled with fresh broccoli and blue rubber gloves. I'm gonna do this, excuse me. All right, you can hear me. I'm gonna go off mic. That's okay. Can we turn this off?
Yeah.
I can project.
Yeah.
Okay. This alley will smell of dank weed and brake dust. You'll find on the ground a black tote bag stuffed with wet lettuce and white surgical masks. It'll seem like this was dropped in a hurry. You'll wonder if that hurried person is safe. You'll notice a wire fence across the alley limp as days go by. Swarms of flies will hover above plastic trash bins. Crows will cross the alley. Someone will keep cleaning the telephone pole in blue spray painted letters you'll never be able to decipher. Someone will be barbecuing carnitas y elote. On sunny days, dried lemon rinds will stick hard to pavement. One day, in front of your Civic, you'll find clean chicken bone wrapped in foil. Neighbors on the other end will party. You'll hear bottles clinking. Patrol cars will cram the alley for no good reason, and it'll smell of burnt plastic and cigarette smoke. You'll hear sirens, you'll hear laughter, you'll hear water drumming against trash bags full of aluminum cans. This will be an after party for afterlives. An elder neighbor will warn you of drugs and the devil's work. A crew of youth will hotbox an old Pathfinder. On the rainiest days, this alley will be a shallow river. Weeds, shreds of paper, crow feathers, and dried lemon rinds rushing downstream. Someone will break into your Civic. Someone will break into your Civic again. It's really easy. They will steal neither your surplus of Starbucks napkins nor your prized Blackstreet CDs. They will steal, you're old if you're laughing at that. They will steal some old prescription eyeglasses and a broken pair of headphones. Yes, and there will be the homie. Quiet, please. The homie will be sound asleep on that perfectly fine barely faded but discarded wooden dining chair. When you see the homie, please leave masks, please leave bottled water, please leave bags of ice, please leave a hot carne asada burrito, and please leave 2 toothbrushes, one for the homie's teeth and one for the homie's Jordan 1s. Place everything in plastic bags. Hang the bags gently on the handlebars of the homie's BMX. Shh. This sadness is a politics. This sadness knows. This sadness holds. This sadness wants, warns, warms. Sadness in the shadow of capital. Sadness against white supremacy. Sadness against imperialism. Sadness against tanks and tear gas. Sadness blocking killer cop kneecap near neck. Sadness that is in fact its own godforsaken solidarity statement. If you want to know what we are, melodramatic telenovela sadness, bulletproof sadness, clapback sadness, confessional sadness, abominist sadness, anti-colonial sadness, say, land back. Say, all power to the people. Say, I am the people. Say, I am not the pig. Say, makibaka. Say, makibaka. Say, junk anti-terror law. Say, demilitarize. Say, deoccupy. Say, para todos. Say, la lucha se sigue. Say, hasta la victoria. Say, wag matakot. Say, isulong. Say, ingat. Say, isang bagsak. Say, sadness of my mother's and father's return from home to here, what could be a final return. Sadness of departures, sadness of colonial removal, sadness of perpetual displacement. Such sadness, so Filipino. Such sadness is relational urgency. Such sadness is abolitionist sadness. Such sadness is quotidian sadness. After the graveyard shift, black and brown nurses in gray and pink scrubs wait together at Valerio's City Bakery to order silogs and catering. And some of us over-theorize solidarity. In the middle of East 8th, large crows swoop on the carcass of an adorable dead possum, and across the street I see His and Hair's barbershop, and I believe whoever named this business should win the most prestigious of literary awards. And somewhere at work, your wrists and your lungs ache and your neck cramps, and you may be coughing and weak with fever, all inside this throb, this rot of racial capitalism. I'm gonna read an essay. We'll see where we're going.
Yeah.
That's good.
Sorry about the mic.
No, you're good. That's just me.
Stand.
No, that's just me. Didn't realize I wouldn't be able to pull it out. Okay, I'm gonna read 2 more things. This one's a little long, so I'll just give you a little bit of history. I was really excited about the title and the concept of the exhibition. I think I actually, where's Nonie? I made a film called Stranger Here, right, about my mother. So my mother was one of 2 Filipino nurses who in 1975 were framed for murder by the FBI, right? So they were framed for murder, poisoning, and conspiracy. And this was before I was born. It happened in the VA hospital in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I might mess up some of these details, but the FBI threw $1 million at the case, so you can imagine $1 million in the mid-70s. They tried and convicted them, right? They were sent to West Virginia federal prison, and then eventually at the advocacy of local communities and transnational communities, they were granted an appeal and they were released, right? But they were never apologized to. Our family never got reparations or anything like that. And so it's been sort of my life work to uncover the story, but mostly to explore the story and support my mother. My mother is now 80 years old, turning 81. At the end of this month, she lives here in Oceanside. And I wanted to read this essay about her walking. She walks every day. She's gone through 2 open brain surgeries for what's called meningioma, which is just a mass on the brain, a non-cancerous mass. And she's gone through radiation. She recently had a seizure, and we rushed her to the ER. But she's still alive and lively, and the primary caregiver to my father, who is suffering from very severe dementia and Alzheimer's, right? And so I want to sort of read this remix or sort of experiment, meditating on her walk. She does it to ambulate, for those of you who know the medical term, but I want to sort of think about what might be happening in her body and in her imagination as she's doing the walk, right? And I'm reading this. I had planned to read this. I didn't know if I had enough time. I'm going to read it because Mr. Joel Butler introduced himself. He was part of the defense committee in Michigan. This gentleman drove down here to see me. I've come across a lot of old school activists, thankfully a lot of Marxists, fellow Marxists and communists, right, to come and sort of talk to me about their advocacy for my mom. I've also run into some horrible people who uphold what the FBI was doing, or at least excuse it and pardon it, right? And so I am just going to trust you, Joel, because I know you're talking the talk. I think there are folks who are interested, even fellow Filipino folks who have been interested coming to me. I mean, it was an incredibly difficult time. There were Filipino, also folks of the Filipino diaspora at the same time calling my mother, telling her she's a shame to the country, shame to our people, etc. Right? And so there was sort of a lot of like complex visions of sort of what this was. But we know it was a sort of textbook case of anti-Filipina state violence. And it was certainly a product of the long colonial relationship that is ongoing that the U.S. has with the Philippines, right? And so I have a lot to say about that case and what we've done, and sort of, I wrote a dissertation about my mother's case, not about the case itself necessarily, but about how I have failed for the last, now 20 years, at the time it was 15 years, to write a novel about the case, because I felt the novel was a form that couldn't capture sort of what I was trying to do. And so I wrote a very meta dissertation about that. And then I brought my mom to my dissertation defense. And I was like, what are you going to say? Right? But out of that, I wrote, I experimented. I wrote this essay. It's coming out in a book that's coming, is forthcoming next fall. And next year is the 50-year anniversary of my mother's arrest, right? And so this essay, it sort of covers, sort of meditates on her walk from getting out of work. This happened in Chicago, right? Getting out of work. She was framed for things that happened in Michigan, sent away, and then they arrested her in Chicago, right? So this follows her walk on June 16, 1976. And I sort of, I take a lot of creative liberty and license and sort of think about things in an experimental way. I will say it is following, in some ways, a poem, and is inspired by a poem by a two-spirit Menominee poet, indigenous queer poet, named Christos. And one of her poems, if you know the Women of Color Radical Feminist Anthology, This Bridge Called My Back, Christos writes a poem in there. I've been teaching and thinking about that poem for a long time, and I had used it to sort of open up this particular essay. So all that context, and here's the essay. So the title is absurdly long. It's titled, I Walk in Historiographies of My Mother, as embodied theory of complex refusal, which may or may not generate a syntax of possibility for expansive underfuturities, wherein my mother shall walk, walk, walk against the state. That's just the title, right? And so I have an excerpt of an interview. After about 10 years, I finally gathered the guts to interview my mother. I didn't want that stuff to resurface. I'm not a therapist, and I didn't want her to revisit that trauma, but my mom is a gangster, right? So she's like ready to talk, and my wife is a therapist. So, if we need those resources, we are there to support her. So this is from an interview where she's reading her journals to me, and I'm also sort of asking her questions, and it sort of shows up in an experimental documentary that I made that I'd be happy to share with anybody who'd be interested at some point if you want to email me. But this is in her voice, this epigraph. June 16th, 1976, a horrible day. The FBI came to my work and arrested me. I didn't do anything. The FBI was mean. They kept trying to get me to confess. I was working morning in the VA, and then there was something fishy. Everybody said, do not leave. The head nurse of the hospital was always going to my desk, and he said, you can't leave till it's time to go home. You have to stay here. I said, okay, I'm not leaving. I'm not going, anywhere. And then after that, like I have a hunch that something is happening, something is going on, but they're not telling me. So when I went home, I was out on the street with a friend, and then we were walking down outside the VA already. And two big men was behind me, and then they were holding me, and they said, Leonora Perez, you are under arrest for the crimes you did in Michigan. I said, what crime? I didn't do any crime. And he said, you have to follow us, ride my car, and if not, we'll drag you. I said, no, I'll just follow you. They handcuffed me. They put a jacket on my handcuff. Yeah, a real handcuff, like this. Okay, this is 20 parts. I'm not going to read the numbers because then you're just going to be waiting. Right? So I'm just going to read this as fast as possible. And they're short, some are a little longer. So, that my mother walks against the state of wake is revelation itself. That revelation itself, geography's intention, those geography's intention, future memories of narrations, those narrations, transitions, those transitions, a parking lot, that parking lot, a destruction of language, that destruction, an accumulation of content, that content, this slow construction of self, this self, a labor, this labor, a nurse, this nurse, Filipina, this slow construction of body and spatial and temporal traffic. Traffic remains metaphor of interior. I walk in the history of my mother. I walk against grain of syllabus. I walk against promise of bibliography. I walk against inclusion. I walk against the ruse of relevance. I walk against remaining traffic. And yes, I walk against such metaphor. And there goes my mother walking, a walking volta in a post-shift trance, in white polyester nursing uniform, in black rubber shoes, in handcuffs covered by black sweater, my walking mother held by a blur of white men, held in violation, held in the throat of world progress. I walk for the history of my mother. Here are fragments thrown together. My mother's body is war. My mother's body is threat. My mother's body is collateral. And I, another genre of collateral. Something fishy happening, my mother says. The FBI is here to arrest the suspected serial killer, walking, the delicate crunch of gravel underneath her black shoes, cameras shuddering, slow traffic passing, a crowd of onlookers speculating, the sound of vein against skin, the sound of a history beginning. History becomes black shoes and a white polyester nursing uniform within the context of racial capitalism. History becomes a black sweater draped over handcuffed hands at the mercy of imperialism. History becomes flowers checked for explosives in my mother's delivery room. From which refusal emerges such history. I refuse to follow you into knowing, and I leave you walking, mother, walking in the irrational. Some stay working here for a sense of home, in fluidities of domination, in serial resistance, in hands undoing settler capitalism, a matter of realism draped over our very own knowing. Amidst reporters everywhere, I walk against the rules of innocence. Oh, how serial is this crime, this white work in motion. I walk at the history of my mother, and I believe in the disruptive role of her imagination. The violence of news, Do not follow my mother into grave temporalities of racialization. Walk in gravel, walk against contribution. Hold my hand as we walk through the history of my mother in this VHS cassette of Michigan, then Illinois, then Michigan again. Of this speculative history, I am suspect. What remains muted in frame are the horrors of working white men just doing their jobs. Come with us, they say, or we will drag you, they say. The silhouette of my mother passes. She holds in what most will never see. Here is what children do when everything done here is done against presence. While underneath this scene, there are alternative outlines, counter memories, under futures. Here in the replay, the ghost is not simply a dead or a missing person. We pray for the ghost. We are prey to the ghost, the under futures ghost, whatever we thought we desired in the first place. What is the material history of the Filipina walking body, walking war, walking collateral, walking ghost? I am a simple figure investigating where history indicts love. Love as roar, love as the ideology of under fire, a sight in which I want to die laughing. I do not mourn the white scene. I do not mourn the white discovery of white regret. I suspect my mother does not tell me of the heaviness of her own imperceptibilities. I am so over description. I walk against the history of my mother. I walk against legibility. I walk directly alongside my mother, between those white FBI agents inside the VHS. My mother's brown walking the sidewalk of downtown Chicago. I walk against visibility, against articulation, and my mother says to me, go ahead and smile and go ahead and cross the street. We stay delicate in our walking, perhaps shaking slightly. Perhaps we walk through the epistemological break between history and fiction, and perhaps we become fiction someday. We narrate against legitimacy, alongside the brightly archived rewind of image and volume of here, not quite here and not quite bright, but open and slow. And my mother, I swear, walks. There's merely something about you, walking in front of a crowded anywhere, and anywhere that needs a theory, and the screen fades to black against the whiteness of timelines, against timelines of whiteness. And so I walk against the state. I walk within the history of my mother, who walks within a history of discrepant settlements, migrations, and fugitivities. We walk relationally, dear relatives. We walk. See how my mother and I still walk without words, without a property syntax. Sorry, that was really long and I subjected you to that. This is the last one I'll read. I promise it might be worth it. So this is I've been thinking about our elders a lot, right? Filipino elders, and sort of, I spent a lot of time in San Diego even before we moved to Oceanside, and I have my father's brothers and sisters live all along San Diego County, right? And so I thought a lot in the spirit of like, so my father-in-law said, like, you know, they're not going to find undocumented Filipinos because they're not out there, right? They sort of know where to be. And then I thought, okay, well, in the spirit of, you know, this saying like, come see me, right? I wrote this poem with the refrain, find us, right? As a sort of, not an invitation, but sort of a declaration of sort of where we're at and sort of where we're not going. It references a lot of parts of San Diego that you might be familiar with. And this is sort of from the perspective of our elders, and written out of a spirit of anger, but out of a spirit of deep love for our communities in a very trying and challenging time at the moment. And so this is titled, Every Single Ounce of Flood. Every single ounce of flood. Find us in trapper hats and oversized black Pendletons. Find us in hand-hemmed khakis. Find us drinking the blackest, most bitter instant coffee, smoking remainders of discarded Benson Hedges cigarettes. Everything is dialectical. Find us picking dirt from fingernails with toothpicks. Here we are, reclaiming every single ounce of flood, collecting every single hot sauce packet for a future. Just say salamat. Find us pouring whole milk and sugar over avocado flesh. Find us playing chess in this lucky seafood parking lot. Find us in gunmetal gray members only jackets and vintage San Diego Chargers beanies. Find us in gift shop white Lakers t-shirts and gold plated earrings. Here we are, carrying plastic bags full of fresh wet fruit. Here we are, clutching tightly this mess of history. Find us in denial. Find us denied. Find us deft in our critique. Find us under thick black veil. Find us in solitude at this bus stop. Find us grasped by prayer, grasped by ancestral singing, ancestral longing. Say walang anuman in the same way you say makibaka. Find us pulling slot machine handles into early morning. Find us chasing children across this casino floor. Find us out for a rare fancy dinner here at this casino buffet. Find us sleeping on the floor of a gutted van truck. Find us peeling open cans of corned beef at this rest stop. Find us in this van full of steaming rice cookers at this Padres tailgate. Find us frying spam at the church festival. We say wag matakot. We say wag matakot to ourselves every single day. Here we go again, reclaiming every single ounce of flood. Here we go again, migratory in our resistance. Find us pushing seafood city shopping carts full of fish and frozen meat and dried mangoes. Pray for us, archive for us, archive us, sing us please. Find us pushing walkers tipped with tennis balls at Plaza Bonita. Just say isulong. Just say kumusta po kayo. Find us shopping for designer handbags and furniture at Spring Valley Swap Meet. Here we are, a protracted longing. Find us packing up the last of the dinuguan at Tita's Kitchenette. This is who we are. Ritual urgency. This is who we are. Say ingat po kayo lagi. Find us watching TFC at max volume and eating super maasim sisig at Christie's Bakery. Pour water for us and say isang baksak. Find us with lottery tickets and crossword puzzles at 7-Eleven. Find us paying for everything with spare change. Find us stacking calling cards and cans of sardinas. Find us simply browsing the spice packages at Lita's Fish Market. Don't ask us about this English. Don't worry about the blade of this imagination. We left our hearts in Pangasinan, Batangas, Nueva Vizcaya, Manila. We are a relational unmaking, so far from home. But find us, finding each other, fighting for each other, all over this work. Thank you.